My name is Xavier Hawk. My company is Phireon Global Partners. I'm not going to talk a whole heck of a lot about it. I'm going to talk a lot about the fundamentals of security tokens and some of the things that we're seeing in the industry, as well as where we're going and some fundamentals about how we think about the industry and how we think about the markets in general, and what the future looks like minus Bitcoin, and how Bitcoin fits into that vision. Okay? So first I'm going to talk about myself a little bit and introduce myself and why I'm even up here in the first place. Talk about a little bit about securities and some of the things that we're looking at and what makes a security. There's been a lot of discussion around it, and I'll tell you some really interesting aspects of it. The whole ICO market, we'll do a rundown of that, and some thoughts and considerations on the broader market as a whole, and then talk about what a perfect system looks like in a Bitcoin ecosystem or a blockchain ecosystem. So about me, I was one of the first people in this space. In 2010, I retired basically and bought a farm up in the mountains of North Carolina. I had just finished a home health agency. I built a home health agency from the ground up in South Florida, retired, said, oh, you know what? I want to build a vision of the future that looks positive and hopeful. So I built a community, and I was like, how do we have a token exchange mechanism that we don't have to use the US dollar? Right? So that led me into looking to a bunch of different kind of currencies, and then boom, Bitcoin happened, and I happened big. So in 2014, I architected the world's first asset-backed, decentralized, commons-owned cryptocurrency. It's called permacredits. This was prior to Tether, prior to blockchain capital. I was speaking around the world, interviews, and the chief architect of the Euro had found my works, talks, and he sent his people to talk to me, and they said, would you be interested in working with the chief architect of the Euro? I was like, yeah, I just got off a mountain, let's do it. So then we were the first to negotiate a cryptocurrency with a nation in Southeast Asia, which was a trade reference currency for their ASEAN PAC. It was a stable-priced private instrument to use to clear trades. Also an agricultural currency, because if you look at the website now, permacredits is down, and I'll tell you why. Because I had the distinct honor of being called out by the SEC on a podcast in 2014, Xavier Hawk and permacredits is clearly a security, right? I've got the recording of it, and that was at a time when you didn't want that, right? And I was like, oh no, you know, because what I did is I called them. I'm like, hey, this is what we want to do. Can this work? And they're like, no, this isn't how that works. You answer all of our questions, and then we hang up. And I was like, oh, okay. So I did. I answered all their questions because I wanted to work with them and make sure that this is going to be something that would be legal and helpful to the people that were interested and all of that. So they called me out, and then I got hacked. And this was before two-factor authentication. And what he just said about Google, it's fucking true. I lost tens of millions of dollars. I got very depressed. I left the space. I went and licked my wounds. There was a lot of other things that happened too. My truck blew up and all kinds of other funny things. But in January 2017, I saw Brock, and we all came up together. Roger, Brock, Bruce, Jason. We were all in the same circuit. We were all doing really well. Everything was exciting. It was the dawn of the industry. And then, so Brock was like, dude, you were way ahead of your time. Like, we didn't have the infrastructure in the market to develop what you were talking about. You helped inspire a lot of these projects. You need to get back in now. And I'm like, again, round two? And he's like, yeah, I'll help you any way I can. So he put me on a conference. I spoke. I talked about governance. I talked about the things I'm going to be speaking about a little bit here. And then I got off the stage, and we had a world leadership, extravaganza. People joined my team, advisories. I was given $250,000. Boom, back in the runnings. Designing one of the systems that will be, ideally, one of the longest-running players in this space. Keep in mind, Netscape, nothing. AOL, not so much of a big player, but these were the big names in the beginning of the industry, right? So we're going to see a lot of interesting things happen coming up in the next few years. So we have now, I think, what it might be the first dividend-paying token called FIRE, and that stands for the golden ratio for Phireon Global Partners. I'll tell you a little bit about it, but mostly I want to talk about the utility security tokens thing. The SEC has recently said pretty much everything is a security. What makes a utility token? You know what a utility token is? A Disney dollar, or a Chuck E. Cheese token, or a gift card. You purchase it and you use it inside of a closed system, and that's the only place you can use it in exchange for something. You get access to a certain set of features, perhaps, but it's not something that fluctuates in value. Anything that fluctuates in value, in my opinion, and what I've been hearing, and what the SEC said, was that it's pretty much a security. And I would go along with that because everything we have done in terms of launching and putting our jurisdictional and and regulatory framework in place is to launch a dividend-paying security. Because like she said up earlier, I can't remember her name, but she was like, it's not very hard to comply, so why not just do that? The reason why is because when we started out in this space, the whole reason this space with the cypherpunks and everything was, this isn't an investment, this is an exit. This is an exit from a system that is not serving us, that is serving a small minority of people. Thank you, guys. So, and the whole reason I got into this space was because, look, this is something that can actually liberate humankind. What we haven't had up until this point in our human history is the ability to say we want something, vote on it, know that that's valid, and then execute on it. That means we could be a global civilization. And the blockchain gives us the potential for making that happen. Now we have to fit in with the regulatory framework and make sure we all don't go into orange jumpsuits. That was kind of like the zeitgeist of the time, right? So I'm going to jump through these. You know, we've seen a lot of foundations. Everybody's trying different strategies to do this, but there is a really clearly laid out strategy. The point is that the little guy, the unaccredited investor can't get in. And what happened is everybody started investing, these 15 to 30-year-olds, and we're like, boom, we're out. We don't pay taxes. We don't have to pay taxes. We're done, right? And that's what has helped the bubble kind of go. And when I say bubble, I just mean like everybody's rolling. It's like they roll the dice. They're like, good, let's keep rolling, right? So that's what's helped push a lot of these ICOs and ridiculous stuff that don't even have business models, don't have business plans, but all that they're banking on is the fact that they've got a token that'll go up in value. And a lot of people are actually making money doing that. I'm watching projects that have no hope in any bad word to have a chance to go and do that and be successful, and yet they're raising money, and the people that are purchasing them are raising money, but somebody's losing out. And that's why the SEC is starting to crack down, right? So we all know about proof of work versus proof of stake. If you've got a proof of stake coin, you can pretty much bank that as a security. The proof of work, especially if it's decentralized like Bitcoin, not so much. Smart contracts are not very smart at this time. The largest hacks in the whole space have happened on multi-sig, parity, smart contract kind of devices in the DAO. I mean, these are all expensive learning curves, like my hack, right? So one of the things that we have as a novelty in our expression and what we're doing with our currency, with our security, is paper and token at the same time. It has tax implications, especially if you don't have liquidity, because then you have a phantom tax event, and this is something that you want to pay attention to if you're an investor. I'm not giving investment advice, I'm just, giving friendly reminders. The thing is that if you give somebody something that they don't have basis points in and that they don't have an expenditure in, that boom, they're culpable for that tax. And if there's no liquidity, then they still have to pay that tax. Ideally, realistically, in the world of whack-a-mole regulations in terms of the ICO market, like somebody else said up here, like you have maybe 2 years before things start really going. So there's still this gray area, but we have never operated in this gray area. I mean, there's a lot of Wild West kind of stuff happening still. And now you're looking at different regulatory environments and saying, oh, now we can go over there and do it there, but you've still got to deal with the fact that the US, if you touch US soil, you're going to be applicable to the laws here. So if you want to go to a different jurisdiction because maybe they're not so lax or whatever, you're just dealing with lag time gray areas that, if you're a long-term business and you really have a business model, like that's not what you want to do. You want to do business right. You want to do it the proper way, have everything dotted, T's crossed, all of that. So the ICOs have been about fundraising. A lot of people do this legal, yoga around utility and security, and we've not. I mean, it was really clear that I turned down a number of different law firms because they kept saying, like, well, we could make it a utility like this. I'm like, dude, the SEC called me out. Security. Like, figure out how to do this. And so basically, we came with a really good strategy and a really good way to launch that properly. So good and bad ICOs, like I said, there's a lot of scams out there. Anybody who's baking on their coin to be the revenue model, don't do it. Here's another big thing that I want to skip to, accountability, and then also the improper market strategies. Here's some realities. We each manage maybe 5 to 20 relationships in a given day, right? That's pushing it. Currencies, how many apps do you use in a given day? I maybe use 4, maybe. Right? How many coins am I going to want to use in a given day? If I'm an investor, maybe 7, because I can watch those and da-da-da-da. That's about the average that our clients and friends of ours are dealing with. They might have some extra ones to see what, how that goes or whatever. But ultimately, you have a small amount of attention and a small amount of interaction. So what we're seeing is a market, much like the car market in the early days. You've got 600 different cars, and out of that, how many companies are left? Maybe 6, right? Same with these tokens, same with these coins. And a lot of their models are based on, hey, you buy our token, then you get to do our thing. But how many of you want to go and buy a token on an exchange, figure out their particular user interface, and then go do their thing? They're creating barriers of entry, but they're selling you on the idea that this token's going to go up in value, and so we're all going, yeah, let's go get some. Now, in the reality of things, is the fellow that was just up before me, he had a really great point. One interface, there's been a number of different organizations, not just in the blockchain space, but social media and everything, that have been coming up with, a one-size-fits-all, like let's keep it all in one place so you can manage it easier. Makes sense. There are points of failure in that. I'll tell you what what our opinion of the perfect system is. And I've got 3 minutes left, so I got to move through this a little bit quicker. So the reality of decentralized. We think of Bitcoin as decentralized, and that's because the ledger itself is decentralized, but the governance is not. 6 guys, core coders, one company. It's not very decentralized. If something goes wrong or they code a fork, there's no culpability. They have to deal with the ire of people if it goes wrong, but so far it's gone well. But what happens if it doesn't? Everybody who's holding Bitcoin's like, what do I do now? You have no recourse. Same with Ethereum, same with Dash, same with Monero, same with every one of these. Even though they might have some components of governance, they are still a centralized authority over a decentralized system. Our system is the opposite. It's based on the Iroquois Confederacy and the Swiss government. So it's not as decentralized as we all think. Vitalik got a job offer from Google and then tweeted about it and everything went, Like this is the reality of where we're at. And I think it's because, wow, we can make a whole lot of money. This is an exciting new technology. What are all the possibilities? But we still need to stay grounded in what is the reality and where are we going as a market and as a global market. So public versus private chains. I don't know if I mentioned this, but I do a lot of consulting work with governments. I do a lot of consulting work with large corporations, blockchain economics. Nobody will touch a public chain. You can't control the ingress, egress. You don't know who's using it. It's too exposed. So they're all going to want private chains. So the one chain to rule them all kind of thing, that doesn't map to reality because each government is going to want their own chain. The idea is to be interoperable and to have a system that is replicable and usable, that they can tweak, that they can adjust the governance, adjust the rates, the taxation, all of this, and then be able to interoperate so that you can go from one ecosystem to the other just by switching an experience in the app. Okay? So I want to say that there's a good use case for private chains. You say, oh, but then it's less decentralized, and it's less this and that. But no, you still have thousands of people in a system verifying those transactions and verifying those votes. So I said a little bit about the nature of the bubble, 15-year-olds, 30-year-olds that keep rolling, We've all made some good money, and just keep it going, right? So then I just talked about many chains and one chains. User interface, simplicity. I liked what you had up here for Edge. It's like, but even then, most people don't care about their private keys. Out there, we, the beginners, the people who come in the beginning, we're like, I want control. I'm free. I am free. This is my freedom right here. So I want to know where my private keys, I keep control of that, da-da-da-da. Most people out there have a bank. They're used to having a bank. They're trained to have a bank, and they don't care about private keys. As long as they press a button and send and it goes, then good. So they're willing to put their trust into somebody. And we talk about trustless, economies, and it's not as beautiful a thing as people make it out to be, okay? We like to have trust. We want to have that comfort. So the perfect system starts with a security token. Investors, come, this is a great idea. You want to be a part of it. We're going to give you returns. The token will go up and down in value, and we're banking on that. But not only that, we're going to give you dividends so that when we sell the company, which we will, then we'll turn around and you'll have actual profits. Oh, and not only that, but we're doing a dual thing. Whereas we sell the fiat, right? We get equity, real equity that gives you fiat distributions, and then a token that's security distributions for any new tokens that we create on our system. When we take our system and replicate it and give it to the Ghanaians, or we take it and we give it to a condo association or a real estate investment trust, we're going to create their private coin, their private token. Then we're going to get a percentage of those. So imagine if Ethereum, when they started, they said every ERC20 token that is created, we're going to get a percent. That's the power of our system. So you start out with that security token that can give those kind of rewards, that can give those kinds of dividends. Then you provide true voting, secure blockchain voting that can't be forged or hacked. I mean, you can hack the wallet, but you can't really forge new votes, right? And you have them the disappearing token after 3 days, right? No value. But then you provide true decentralization with a consensus model based on the phi ratio, which isn't democracy, 51% rule, but an actual consensus, because we validate consensus and come to that consensus quicker than any system out there. So the whole reason I got into this space was, let's design a system that's more efficient, more rewarding, and makes people feel like they're actually involved. Imagine if you could choose where your taxes went. Instead of having to pay them, go find an IRS agent, hire an accountant and all of this stuff, but it was automatically taken out, but you got to choose where it goes. The power for our species to now self-determine what we want to see for our planetary evolution is now within our hands, but it has to be a system that's built distributed, and it has to be decentralized in the true sense of the word. So you create a membership, a corporation. So now we are in a business together. We're not just trading and doing business, we are in a business together. There's a whole lot of regulations that go out the window then when we are in a corporation together, and how we trade and what we do with our corporate time and funds and monies. So stable price private currency then. Once you've got the investors, you built the app, we've got the investors, and I'm about to end, thank you very much. Then it's a stable priced utility token that we actually then trade and use for transactions. We can reward and pay our members. And then the data. We now own our data. We all decide this company wants to advertise to us. Do we want it? Sure. Everybody votes. Yes. Good. Great. Okay. Boom. $100,000, $100 million, whatever. Now you can come in and advertise to us. So we leverage our attention, our data. And it's not about the specific chain. It's about the proper chain for the proper application. There are good chains for voting. There are good chains for ID. There are good chains for transactions. And there are good chains for land rights. So we use all of those different chains in a simple, easy-to-use interface. Right? So the perfect system looks like the world's resources start becoming scarce. Who has the world's resources? The corporations, the governments. They start saying to their people, hey, you want to be safe, you want to be fed, you come work with us. You come and become a human resource for our corporation. This is where we're headed in the next 20, 40, 30, 60 years. Okay? So unless we start building the corporations that are the United States of corporations, where we are the owners and the deciders of what we are worth and what we want, what values we want to live by, it's going to be decided for us. And this is the power of the blockchain. This is the power of this transformational revolution that's happening. And welcome to Wall Street. Fine, fucking bring it, because we need money to make this happen. Thank you very much for your time.